Hi guys, so Keir Starmer delivered his 6 steps for change, a bit like the approach Tony Blair had back in 1997 ahead of the landslide victory. It seems even with a massive lead in the polls, Labour don't feel that they can get away with keeping their heads down and hoping that the Tories collapse by themselves. Now, while Tony Blair presented himself and his party as a radical change from the past, Starmer, it seems, is portraying himself as a change candidate, but that the policies will not be anything dramatic. Here Beth Rigby, who was at the launch, explains.
And he is now saying, I'm levelling with you that I will be a change leader, but in policy terms, I might not be able to do what even 15 months ago he was talking about, at least in the initial stages of a Labour government, should they win, because of the environment he finds himself in. And I think what he's trying to do there is level with voters and sort of signal he's trustworthy. But the Conservatives will see this as a weak flank for Keir Starmer. And I don't think he was entirely comfortable when pressed on those things, because he knows that he made loads of promises that he can't keep, and he can explain them away, but that is still what stands. So I think trust is going to be a massive issue in this election. And then can he sell the message of change? I think in terms of the actual things he's promising voters, when you look at what Tony Blair was promising, they were really concrete pledges, things like class sizes under 30, not increasing income tax. He talked about getting 250,000 young people into work. They were really concrete things that you could put your fingers on. Starmer isn't doing that. He's talking about economic stability. He's talking about safer streets, but he's not really pinpointing the measures. And I think that's because, in a way, he doesn't want to make a promise that he doesn't think he can't deliver on. And I think they've taken the calculation. It comes to this thing about caution versus bold, that because they are so far ahead in the polls, that the message and the energy of change will be enough to get them across the line without having to make these very concrete retail pledges. So he hasn't done that, and I think he's done that for a reason.
And I think she's right. The idea that Starmer will be the change candidate, the change prime minister, and that will be enough, while the policies themselves will come second. And she's right as well that how the Conservatives are attacking Starmer on changing, they called him flip-flopping, how he changed from one policy to another, U-turn, stuff like this. And he's also been attacked on the left for the same reason. So, you know, he won the leadership of the Labour Party, pledging to do a whole range of things, and he's backtracked on most, or if not all of them. So he's been attacked on both sides, on the left for changing direction, and of course on the right for the same reason. So if we look at the policies themselves, as Beth Rigby said, it is quite vague. Most of them are quite vague. Now, these are, in a sense, not even policies. They're just first steps, as the Labour Party are talking about. This is not the party manifesto. We're going to see that later on. But I think this is a sort of a message the party is sending out to the public to get a sort of reaction, I think, and to set a narrative. So once again, as Beth Rigby pointed out, he will be the change candidate, but the policies themselves are going to be pretty vague, so that he can't be called out on, well, you didn't actually do this, or you didn't respect this target that you had set yourself. Tony Blair had set certain targets. It seems the new approach is not to, in order not to fail, in a sense. So it says deliver economic stability with tough spending rules. Okay, these are the Tory spending rules. So we can grow our economy, keep taxes, inflation and mortgages as low as possible. So he's once again not setting a target here. It's like keep it as low as possible. So if you do succeed in lowering it a little bit, see, we have succeeded. We have followed through on that pledge. Cut NHS waiting times with 40,000 more evening and weekend appointments each week. Paid for by cracking down on the tax avoidance and non-doms. Now, this is an actual target, so 40,000 more evening and weekend appointment. I don't know how they're actually going to achieve that, because GPs are already burnt out. They're not able to take on anymore, and the only way you could increase them would be to hire more GPs. we don't know how that's going to happen. Launch a new border security command with hundreds of new specialist investigators and counter-terror powers to smash criminal gangs and strengthen our borders. Once again, hiring staff, this is a bit of a red flag for people who've been following Brexit because, well, a lot of staff in the public service left after Brexit, people who were working, from abroad, who were working in the public sector or even in the private sector, and we saw staff disappear. But also the Tories have been cutting back on the public service over the last 14 years. I think it was Jacob Rees-Mogg who was talking about sacking 70,000 public service workers. So I'm not sure where these workers are going to come from and how long it's going to take to train them up. Set up Great British Energy, a publicly owned clean energy company to cut bills for good and boost energy security, paid for by a windfall tax on the oil and gas giants. So this is a good approach. This is probably part of the new Green Deal or the Green Deal pledge that was talked about before. They had originally set a target for this of £28 billion investment. That was changed, it seems, but the policy still remains in place, and this will be part of that. This is something that, in a sense, if it's not fully clear yet, but it could be a case that it could it could bring down bills for ordinary people, because the energy would not be sold directly on the open market, but it could be partly sold to Great British Energy, and they would be able to keep a check on energy prices. Crackdown on antisocial behaviour with more neighbourhood police paid by ending wasteful contracts, tough new penalties for offenders, and a new network of youth hubs. This, of course, once again, you need staff, you need resources, you need to pay for this. But as said in the report, there's nothing specific here. More neighbourhood police. How many? Tougher new penalties. What types of penalties? And of course, if prisons are already overflowing, are you going to send people to prison? Are you going to have some sort of reform for prisoners or some sort of alternative to prison? Number 6, recruit 6,500 new teachers in key subjects to set children up for life, work and future, paid for by ending the tax break for private schools. I don't know if these numbers match up, but this is something, once again, where are these teachers going to come from? And by setting a target like 6,500, is this within the first 100 days? Is it within the first parliament? How long? So the information here is not very precise. So it's easy for Labour, after they're in power, to say, well, that 6,500 was in a parliament, it was not in the first 100 days. So if you keep it quite vague, it makes it easier for you to turn around after and say, actually, we did achieve this. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.